right. Good morning, everyone. Brad Roltgen here with the Fresno Bitcoin and Cryptocurrency Investors Group. Today we're talking about the craziness over the past 3, 4 weeks in the price fluctuation with Bitcoin as well as all the other cryptos for the most part. We'll kind of just have a informal discussion and hopefully be able to learn something from each other. Um, For me, I haven't sold anything, trying to keep those diamond hands. But my question has been, okay, do I want to buy more? And if I do, how much more? That kind of thing. I do an automatic, like when I get my paycheck, I do an automatic purchase every 2 weeks, like clockwork. I use a exchange called river.com, which Eric from our in-person meetings turned me on to. Their claim to fame is that they don't charge any fees when you're doing um, uh, a scheduled purchase. So if you set it up to purchase once a month, twice a month, whatever, they don't charge you any fees. Now I take that with a grain of salt because they can always build something into the price, and that kind of thing. So that's hard to determine, but seems to work pretty well. And then they offered a new feature maybe 8 weeks ago where I have my monthly or every 2 week purchase. But then they have an option that you can turn on or off. You don't have to do it. So that if the price of Bitcoin is down, it will purchase more for you. So it kind of helps you to dollar cost average, on supercharge kind of thing. So what I selected the option was if the price of Bitcoin was down, then I would purchase 50% more, every 2 weeks. And so that's what I've been doing. Um, but then when the price dropped, I when I saw the feature, I'm like, okay, let me try that. It wasn't, that 50% wasn't a huge number in terms of dollar, as far as affecting the budget. So I just did it. But then when we had all these price drops, I'm thinking, what is actually the definition of it being down? Is it down since last week, last month, the last time I purchased, that kind of thing? So I'm not sure there. I did look at it a week ago or whenever my last purchase was, and it only purchased the regular amount. So I'm gonna have to go back in there and see what the, you know, lower price is related to as far as that goes. Looks like we've had Elizabeth join us.
Hi,
Yo, hi, good morning. Where are you checking in from?
California.
All right. Well, good to have you with us.
Yeah,
And,
I need some crypto support groups.
oh, okay, okay. Where are you on your crypto journey?
So I got a fluke tip about a year ago with my IRA to follow XRP, and my money doubled, and I was too afraid to touch it, and so it went back down, and then it doubled again, and I cashed out, and now I'm looking to reinvest, and I've been throwing money at all sorts of different things. I'm landing mostly on Bitcoin, but I have some altcoins, and I'm on Kraken and I trust. I'm converting to a Roth to avoid taxes, hopefully someday. Um, but I'm feeling a little scattered, and so I wanted to talk to some people. I have no one to talk to about this. Everyone I mentioned to crypto to is like it's too dangerous.
Right, right. And that's the beauty of our in-person meetings that we do. A lot of us are in the Fresno Clovis area. The group started meeting in person back in 2018. And then with the onset of COVID, we went Zoom like everything else did. And we started getting folks from around California just because that's where Meetup seems to draw people from closer to where, we are. And then all over the country as well. And so we've kept up the Zoom meetings, and then we also meet once a month in person. And the in-person ones are great when new people show up because just like you said, they're like, I don't have anybody to talk to about crypto. And it's just like they don't care who we are. It's just like I want somebody to talk to. So I know what you mean and welcome. So if you're close enough to to make a drive or whatever. You know, we do those in-person meetings usually about 2 weeks after this one type of thing. Um, so,
At the pizzeria.
pardon me?
At the pizzeria?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
I saw that.
yeah, yeah. You know, what's better than crypto and pizza, right? So all good. Ahmed, good to have you. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Great. Good morning. Just waking up here and learning more about and get more updates here. Uh,
Excellent, excellent. Well, I kind of was talking about how I'm using the river.com to do regular purchases. But what I've been was thinking, when it was down to 82, 84, I'm like, yeah, it would be nice to buy another chunk, you know, um at that price. But I didn't pull the trigger on that. I think there's a difference between holding on to it, like a lot of us has just been holding, we don't intend on selling. And this is mostly Bitcoin, Elizabeth. Most of us, lean 60, 70%, Bitcoin and then fill in with some altcoins, there. A lot of times, including me, have gotten burned on the excitement over some little coin, that's up and coming or whatever, and have put too much of our, portfolio into a smaller coin and then, didn't have the results we were hoping for, kind of thing. So those ones you hear about, or hey, there's this new project, and a lot of them sound good, but the reality, if there's one that sounds good like that, there's probably another 10 or 20 that we haven't heard about that are doing the same thing. And without a lot of research, we don't know which one of those or two or three of those might, you know, get traction and have legs long term, and the other 17 go away, type of
Yeah,
thing.
and that seems to have to do with like utility, like long-term utility.
Right. Or if what they're doing makes sense, or if whatever they're doing gets picked up by a bigger player as just another feature. Um, this is kind of an analogy, but the smash burgers have been real popular at the restaurants. It's like all these smash burger restaurants have opened up, and it's like, well, it doesn't take much for Jack in the Box or Carl's Jr. or somebody else to make their own smash burger, and now they're doing what your little niche is. So there's no need specifically for that smash burger restaurant because you can get those at any other place. It's not a big deal. So
I did hear that XRP is patenting some of their tricks of the trade, whatever they're up to.
sure, no, and they're very involved. They have a lot more going than just the coin, and kind of what we look at is the market cap. So if the market cap, if the coin is in the top 10, 15 of the market cap at the top there, that's, should be fairly safe type of thing, as opposed to these little coins might be number, 1,623 on the list, which, a 200 million or even 20 million market cap type of thing compared to, 2 billion or whatever of the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are on the top. So that's kind of where we differentiate. Usually you can't go too wrong if you stick with those top 10, top 15, now some of those are stable coins, so those don't even count. In my book is, it's not going up, it's stable. That's the whole point.
Yeah. I was like, is that for spending? And then I'm supposed to save with the other ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, people use them for transactions when they're trading. Back in the, early days prior to stable coins, Bitcoin was the coin that was universally accepted in the various exchanges. So, Coinbase used to support Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin. So a lot of people would use that as a bridge to go from fiat to crypto, but they wanted to buy some other coin, like XRP, for example, at that time Coinbase didn't support. So then they would transfer their Bitcoin to Binance or some other exchange to purchase the XRP. Now the stable coins have kind of taken the place of that. And I think one reason is when the prices are quoted on the exchange for the price of XRP or whatever, it's in terms of dollars that are easier for us to understand than in terms of Bitcoin. Like 0.0000431. It's like, what, how much is that? But we know $2.30 for XRP. We know, we can grasp that a little better. So that's kind of what's going on. It looks like Timothy has joined us. Welcome, Timothy. How are you doing today?
Doing good.
Excellent. Where are you checking in from?
My bus.
Oh, that Timothy. Okay. I know you.
Yeah,
I think I know you better by Tim, but we'll be formal
yeah.
here and use your full name.
Tim, Timothy, Tech, TNT, whatever.
Got it. All right. Well, welcome. Let's see. Let me ask, Michael, what do you think about this on the ups and downs here? Has that affected your strategy at all?
Um, no, uh, I am I am going to be adding though, because I think it's every time it's had I mean, we're down from 126, right? So we're
Hmm.
roughly at 90,000. So we're 36,000 low, which is, some 35, 40%, something like that. So this is a good time to add. Every time we've had this kind of drawdown, um, it's always worked out well for me. So I'll be adding some here this next week. I've got some new funds coming in, so I'll be adding.
Okay. And you've been kind of been adding over the years, and I mean you're probably our um, most consistent and our strongest hodler, which you
I've been
know
holding for about 8 years.
is great. Yeah. So are you buying more than you would if the price was, 115 to 126?
Uh, yeah, I didn't buy any when we were over 100,000.
Yeah.
My last buy, I'll tell you the last time I actually purchased was probably around 20,000. Okay, so I haven't bought in a while.
It has been okay. Okay.
But this is a pretty good drawdown, and I will say that it's been this is off the typical cycle for Bitcoin, because usually November, December, we're up.
Hmm.
We're not down, and down pretty strongly. So it's a little odd, but I do know that every time that there's a big drawdown, that's always worked out well for me. When we had the thing with COVID, and the world went to crazy, back in March of 2020. You asked me how much I buy. I usually buy per percentage. So, like then I bought 10% more on a day that it was 6,000. So I spent $600 on 10% more, and that's, it's worth 9 grand now.
Okay.
So, that's the kind of things that I try to do. But it has been a long time since I've purchased any, but now it just seems like a good time to do it. And I will admit one other thing. I did get a little, when it was crashing down and got into the lower 80s, that kind of threw me a little bit. I did not expect that. And I've been at this since it was about 2000, 2200.
Hmm.
So I've seen the ups and downs, just like you have. But that I thought once we reached 100, we were good to stay at 100 or better. So that kind of threw me. But then I went to sleep and I woke up and I was like, heck, I'm buying more.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, and when I asked, if you're buying more, we here in the group, we don't care if you have 1,000, 100,000, a million, that's your business. I was looking more for, hey, it's down this much, I'm going to buy 20% more than I would have if it was at 100,000 or, something like that. But
No,
I
I
never.
usually, I've bought in chunks of like 3 to 5% over the years, except for in the very early days where you could, my first buy was like $500 and I bought like, I don't know, 20% or something, right? I mean, $500 at 2,500 is 20%. So it wasn't any big deal. But then as it got more and more, I buy a percentage, like 3 to 5% at a time. So
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah.
look at what the dollar amount is that I'm spending. I look at what the percentage that I'm adding. I got a buddy of mine that he just he just buys in like 25 or $50 increments. And I said, you're just stacking Satoshis, right? So, it's not really, it's everybody has a little different strategy. Mine is just a percentage as I,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And just to clarify for others, he's talking about the percentage of one Bitcoin. If he's
correct,
buying, you know,
correct. Like
20% of a Bitcoin.
3% at 100 grand is $3,000.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just shows you how crazy it is. $3,000 for 3%. And I bought 10% for $600. That gives you an idea as to what this can do for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm sure there's
Absolutely.
plenty of other people that bought whole coins at 6 grand on that day, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Wish
and
I'd done
earlier
that.
too.
I have my assistant here too, my note taker taking notes.
Cool. Cool. And what you mentioned when it hit 80, down in that range, that I was kind of feeling that too and kind of questions like, hey, is this different than before? This kind of thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I go, this doesn't seem right because December is always an up month.
Yeah.
We still have a chance to be up. I mean, it's only the 6th. So
Yeah. Now, looks like things are not going well on the financial front altogether, to talk about the overnight repo market and, things like that. Um, and Bitcoin seems to be, more and more considered like a stock. And, you've got the Black Rocks and all the big boys playing it. So I think we're seeing the activity more mirror stocks, and securities than a crypto and where it's followed the cycles and innovation and this kind of thing that we've been used to over the years.
I did see something the other day that Larry Fink, who is speaking of BlackRock, he's the CEO of BlackRock. He said that there are sovereign wealth funds that are purchasing Bitcoin.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of a big deal because they have trillions to spend, um, collectively. And so uh, it's an interesting group to be purchasing Bitcoin. However, we don't really see that in the price movement at the time. I mean, at the moment. But
That's the thing. And I know, Tim, you've had, thoughts on that as far as where those big boys are buying. Are you still following that as closely? Is it still, where
Yeah,
they're
I know that
purchasing?
Luxembourg just recently bought a bunch.
Okay.
Oh,
But
yeah.
are they buying them from the miners like you were talking about, or
No, they're buying OTC still,
okay.
which is over the counter. Which is like from miners. Uh, it's not retail.
Right,
None
through
of
the
them are
exchanges.
purchasing very. I'm not aware of any that are purchasing retail. Uh, if they were to, if any of these other entities, corporations and whatnot started purchasing over retail, the price would have skyrocketed.
Right, and that's what I always expected, once these the ETFs came out and that kind of thing. But that, we haven't seen that, um, which is
No, until the
odd.
Clarity Act actually passes, we're just going to see market manipulation.
And that's in January, right?
Well,
Or it goes into
yeah,
effect.
we don't, I don't know on the Clarity Act when that will actually be signed. Um, the good thing is, like, the Genius Act actually passed, and it had bipartisan support. They're not, to my knowledge, they're not looking at it like, oh no, we're fighting Trump, so we can't say yes on that. Because too many of the constituents from both sides uh, would, be probably quite irate.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And all the big players, in the financial industry now they're becoming more and more involved. Okay, good.
So, can I ask if
Please.
there's a thought of market manipulation? Do you think there might be another like bigger dump drawdown
Yeah, they're doing everything. They're buying they're buying somewhere between 9 to 11% are the numbers that I've heard, more Bitcoin every day than are produced every day. There's only 450 new Bitcoin made every day. And they're buying the lowest. I mean, this is an on average type of thing. Because there are days that there's an outflow where they sell. But when they do that, they even cheat there because they're buying specifically OTC, but then they'll turn around and they'll sell to Coinbase. And so they're selling back into retail. You go and you dump, if you're buying 10,000 one day and then 2 days later you're selling 1,000 in retail, then that again helps drop the price. And so there is a lot of speculation that that's one of the little tricks they've been playing, because while they're all in, they don't want to pay top dollar. They never have. These people have they manipulate markets because they own the markets. Now they kind of try to go out of their way to not break the laws, but we know that, Citigroup and Goldman Sachs and these people, a lot of times if they break the laws, they're willing to do that as long as the upside is still there. If you take and you can do $2 trillion worth of manipulation and the fine is 500 million, that's just the cost of doing business. Nobody's going to jail over it. And I think they should all be in jail, but
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, but I agree with
yeah,
you. But generally,
yeah,
the thought is that the manipulation is to hold the price down,
yeah,
like Tim mentioned, is kind of where it's at. So whether they can secure more, that they're building their bags in the background that we don't even see, or what, but that's generally the thought. Let's see,
yeah.
Susan.
They have no plan of selling overall, in the long term view, because they understand it's a finite resource. So whatever they can do until it's illegal to be able to take and suppress the price, they're just going to look at that as a way to accumulate more in the long term. So they'll manipulate the market to be able to take and fill their bags more. And because they're just, they don't make their money on the spread as much as they make their money from the fees. And
Right,
so for
right.
them, it's all about money, but it's, we care because in theory, at some point, we would either borrow against it or we might liquidate. My theory, I'm sorry, I got background noise going on here. My theory is that I want to take and accumulate on Bitcoin. I'm not going to sell that, but everything else at the end of the bull run, I'm waving bye-bye to it. It's all gone. And then next cycle, I'll turn around and kind of wash, rinse, repeat. A lot of the others, some of what I have, they're not proof, they're proof of stake, so I will stake them while I am purchasing more. And that just enables you to kind of make a little fatter bag over time. A lot of people only want proof of work. Okay, fine. There's a small number of things that you can be buying, but I'm money's money. I'll take it where I can get it.
There you go.
So
Yeah, good. Hey, Susan, jump in here. I know you follow the markets, maybe a little more on the stock side of things, but jump in here and share your thoughts on the volatility or the fun of the volatility we've been experiencing.
Yeah, so um I love this group and the perspective all of you bring. It's really fascinating for somebody that is kind of in the fog. But I did hear somebody throw out a number that the floor would be 72,000.
I hear 76.
And was that based on anything or
Well, he was just an aficionado and somebody that it's his job. It's what he does. He studies the maybe I don't know if it's Fibonacci levels. He didn't really say, but he said he wouldn't be surprised if the floor was 72,000. So I don't know. I'm just sort of watching that and watching it go up and down and up and down. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what it's it the news, I think, impacts it as well as, I mean, I have no idea, like Tim's saying about behind the scenes. So it's I don't know, but I'm open to buying more. Add
okay.
my little bit in IBIT.
Right, right. And so you've been doing I know you got started with the ETF and that's still where you're focusing.
Yeah, it's just so easy
Right, right.
having to keep a wallet. I don't know. And then my yeah, and then what my kids might do with not they're even worse than I am. So to try to expect them to um transition a Bitcoin wallet is just more. I decided it's more than I can do. But the IBIT is pretty easy. And there are fees, but whatever. It's just been fun.
Good. And it gets you exposure to Bitcoin, which to me I think is the important thing. And I'm, encouraging, my sister is not a crypto person, but hey, look, 1%. I did see Bank of America, I think this week they recommended up to 4 or 5% of your portfolio into crypto. I'm like, wow, to me that was a big number to come out of the block.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
I
have you
guess
guys
it
seen?
depends on the size of your portfolio, what the
Well, with
commitment
the
would be.
percentage, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But Michael, have you seen any other recommendations from these players as far as, 2%? I know it was this week
Mhm.
Vanguard started offering it to their clients. But I mean, if that's a big number, if you got 30, 40% of people had 2%, 1% in their portfolio, that would do wonders for the price.
Yeah, most of the things that I've seen are somewhere between 2 and 5%, and 5% is kind of the outlier. So most of it's around 2 or 3%. But I think that as time goes on, you said something earlier that people are starting to look at this as like like any other stock type of thing. Now, granted, it's not a stock. There's no company behind it or anything. There's no earnings behind it, which really defines that. But I think that percentage of is going to go much higher as time goes on. But you have the big boys coming out. One other thing that I'm going to pose out there, I'm curious as to what people think about. You have a lot of baby boomers that are that are aging and passing. You know, not to be too harsh, but that's true. So it's coming in younger hands. And I'm kind of wondering, has anybody thought about that? What the ramifications are for that? Because, you know, my 87-year-old mom was not buying Bitcoin, okay, but her son was buying it, okay. So uh, I'm just wondering what people think about that particular scenario.
Yeah, I was surprised with this group that the kind of the median or average age is what would you say, Michael? Probably late 40s into 50s
I'd
is
say
our
maybe the
median.
mid 30s there, Bradley. I think most of us are about the mid 30s. So
That's
at
okay,
least in
maybe.
here, at least in here. Well,
Okay.
more like the
Okay.
teens.
But when you mentioned your kids, Michael, and my daughter, I mean, my daughter's 30 and my son's 27, and they're not into it. And you would think this would be a younger person's game, but I think the real part of it is when we get to our late 40s into 50s, we're starting to think about these financial things more. And when you're 32, 37, not as much. So I think that's
True.
has more to it than, it's a tech thing and, it's an app on your phone or whatever. So I think that's more the driver. But
Well, my first foray into it was it wasn't like an investment per se. Well, it was, but what it was a way for me to pay off my house. So that was my thought process when I got into it. I thought this is a move. I remember first a friend of mine talking about it years before at around $100, and I couldn't find hardly any information on it. There wasn't hardly anything in the world. I mean, maybe Coinbase was like 5 minutes old. I don't even know if there was a Coinbase when I first heard about it. But then I look at it X number of years later, and it went from 100 to like 2,500, and I thought, okay, that's some pretty that's a pretty big amount of growth, exponential. That's the word I was looking for. And I thought, maybe this does this thing do that again? So that was my thought process. I don't think people in their 20s or 30s are thinking about that. However, I did have a friend of mine's son who's probably about 24, 25, texted me a few weeks ago and said he wanted to sit down with me, figure out where they could put their money for the next few years. And so we're going to sit down. I'm just going to tell them this is what I've been doing. So I think there are people out there who are young, and he was specifically interested in Bitcoin. So I think there are people out there like that. But I think kids these days are just so distracted by so many things that this is just one more shining star in their world, and it's no bigger or lower than anything else, so it doesn't gather attention.
right. And maybe they have a 401k at work and they're just like, okay, I have that bucket covered, and they're not thinking beyond that, kind of. I mean, most their biggest financial concern is probably saving for a down payment for a house is, probably as opposed to retirement in 30 years type of thing. But man, could you imagine just putting, 1 or 2% of your paycheck for the next 10 years into Bitcoin? What what that could mean, and we're talking about the percentages, the 2 to 5, maybe we're talking 3% in Bitcoin and 1% in Ethereum and 1% in XRP, or something like that. Who knows? So interesting.
And I think it's also kind of taboo. It's been the expected way is all you need to do is, work for 30 years, stash away your money, let it grow on the stock market at 8% a year, and you'll be fine. And with inflation the way it is, it's not true anymore.
Right. It's almost like, yeah, we need an advantage or something to even just stay ahead kind of thing, or stay up with it, or hopefully get ahead a little.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. Ahmed, any thoughts on your end of the conversation? Well, sometimes he's working or doing something. He can't chime in. Yep, there
Oh
we
yeah,
go.
yeah. I'm still down 2% on my portfolios uh, after this crash overall. So, but I was just listening to was it Tim who said that like he kind of woke up and then like bought some more. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to buy more, especially since the Fed they've been putting in a lot more in crypto. So I don't understand why it crashed exactly because they've been putting in more. And yeah, but it should definitely jump back up. So this is a good low, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned your portfolio, was down. But were you have you because it sounded like previous from, a month or two, or when we talked about it last, that you weren't adding more. Are you thinking adding more now because of
Yeah, because
Bitcoin
I
down?
haven't added anything in like years, and and honestly, I think I've become analysis paralysis.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, dollar cost averaging and just trying to buy it like at the lows is probably a good idea. Um, yeah, Bitcoins and uh, ETH is kind of the stacking the main stuff would be a good idea. I mean, that's typically what some of my other.
yeah. That's what I finally realized is the dollar cost averaging and just buying with every paycheck. And it just don't even, and you don't have to think about it. I have it set up automatically with that river. I have been doing it through crypto.com. But this river seemed to, be a little more aligned to do that automated monthly or weekly or biweekly or whatever you want to do there. The odd thing with it is they only support Bitcoin. And I'm like, why would they not support some other coins? I mean, you don't have to support 100 or 200, but maybe just like 10, or five. I mean, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, whatever. So that's the only odd thing I find with River, but for what it is with Bitcoin, and I'm accumulating Bitcoin, so it works fine for me, as far as that goes. But you made a good point and I don't know if I've heard of, do we know why things have gone down so much? I don't know if I've heard a specific reason, and it doesn't make sense if more and more ETFs and Vanguards are jumping in and Fidelity, types of folks. It just, yeah. I mean, Michael, have you heard a reason or two why, it's dumped?
Yeah, I think that there was a risk off in the market, and we had a bit of a sell-off in technology and a lot of other things. So I think what kind of triggered it was last month when the Fed cut, and then they started talking, well, we don't know whether everybody was 100% in on a rate cut in December. And the Fed is just was hemming and hawing and basically very hawkish. And I expect them to be. I think it's next week that they're going to cut for December, but I think they're going to be really hawkish about it. And I think people get and expect certain things to happen, and then so they do the risk on and risk off. Bitcoin is definitely a risk on asset. So, it's not like buying Procter and Gamble, right?
Right.
It's not like buying PG&E. It's definitely a risk. And so I think there was a lot of risk off because if you look at it, if you look at a chart between Bitcoin and the Nasdaq, I mean they're going down, similarly, while gold was going up. Gold is definitely, things are going to be bad, so gold's going to go up. So I mean that's my perspective. That's what I've heard. That's what I understand. It was a risk off. But I think that the market occasionally needs to, there's this fear and greed index thing, and
Hmm.
we were really deep in the greed. And I think sometimes that needs to come back, um, because you need to have the fear sometimes to shake people out from being complacent. So it's really it's really annoying. It's really kind of scary sometimes. You watch your portfolio drop by thousands or tens of thousands, in 2 weeks or whatever, and that can really shake you up a little bit. But then, as all of us who are in Bitcoin know, when you have those drops, you buy because in a couple months or even a couple weeks, you're going to be in the black. So, but it's a risk off thing. That's what was going on. But I still go back to what I said earlier in that this is usually an up season. November. Now, granted, last November was different because Trump won the election and they knew that Bitcoin would be looked at positively by a new administration. And
Right.
so that's one of the reasons why it ran. But typically it runs in November and December, and that's not what's happened this year. It's run down as opposed to up.
Yeah, I was looking at the chart of Nasdaq versus Bitcoin. It just looks like, Bitcoin percentage wise dumped, much more. And, as well as one, specific thing as opposed to the Nasdaq index, we're definitely going to see that. So maybe it's something we just need to expect when it is risk off, expect Bitcoin to go down 2 or 3x the market or, a handful of stocks type of thing.
Well, we do have to look at reality, and that is that Bitcoin, it has its uses and things, but a lot of people still look at it as a speculative asset, right? And while Nvidia and Microsoft and all these others, Planeteer or Palantir, all went down. They're companies that are making money, right? They have real businesses and so forth.
Right.
And so, they're only going to go down a certain percentage. They've got billions and billions in income or in sales. And so Bitcoin still is speculative. We have to be honest about that. And so I think that's why you get a 2 or 3 times greater greater sell-off.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, you can get 2 or 3 times greater
Bounce back.
appreciation,
Right.
even above something like a Palantir, which is up like, I don't know, 1,500% or 15,000%. I don't know. It's one of those numbers. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was kind of hoping to talk about today, and realize that hey, this does happen. It moves a little more, and maybe hopefully we have a little more confidence about purchasing when it does dump 30%. I mean, that's the time to buy, not when it, goes up 10%. We get all excited there. It's like, hey, you're buying at, 135 or 85. Which would you rather do? If you're in this for the long term, if you're a trader and you're looking to, to get out, every one month and get back in the other month, that's a different story. But most of us are, buy and hold 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And so, yeah, better to buy at 85 than 135. So hopefully, yeah.
And I think also that adoption and institutionalization, it becoming a part of our Federal Reserve, they were saying. There are entire countries like Bhutan, I just heard about. They skipped the whole like let's get a loan because they've been mining this whole time. Like they're in the global picture of it, Bitcoin is definitely seen as non-speculative.
Right. And I think, for some of us that have been in it so long, it's kind of like, we look at it and go, well, duh. But it's like they're they're getting it now, and which is great because this country and that country and a BlackRock and a Vanguard or whatever, that's just building the foundation, and to me it just makes the foundation stronger and stronger the more folks you have in it, and it's still limited to 21 million coins, and the more people that are in it, the price has to go up. There's just no way around that. So good, good. Now, Bitcoin's one thing, what about Ethereum? What about Solana, XRP? Is that going to apply equally? Any thoughts on
So,
that?
is anyone following Tom Lee, the economist? Because
Oh,
he's
I've been following Tom for a long time. He's great. I love that guy.
and he's saying that Ethereum is grossly undervalued, and that you know, like Bitcoin may double or triple again, but that Ethereum might like quadruple or more, way
Right.
more.
When you talk about utility and all the smart contracts, and I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of smart contract usage. I think we've come up with a lot of uses for smart contracts, but they've nowhere near been implemented to the extent that they could be. Um, And when that happens, what do they, they need Ethereum to do that. So that's where I agree with you, the, 4x, 5x move from here for sure. Let's see.
There
Well, I
could be
think the
also pressure from these money managers, professional money managers. They're very smart, and I believe a lot of them are playing it right now for the short side. So they'll make money no matter what.
The
They're
short term or actually
short
shorting the
side, yes, like strategy.
okay.
I heard um, their short side was larger. Yes, their shorting
They're selling
was,
against it, is what she
yeah,
means.
and maybe through options and things. I'm not
Mhm.
sure how, but
usually through futures.
they're,
Yeah.
yeah, or maybe and outright selling. I don't know, but there's some short sale influencing what's going on.
Yeah, they're selling it at 100 and then they're buying it back at 85 and they make that $15,000 in
Yeah,
swing.
so the smart money that people that do this for a living, they're, yes, they're making money both ways. So yeah, I think that's a lot of the downside. And then the other people think, wow, if I get out now, I have a little gain. So then they hop on. And the outflow of IBIT was recently greater than it's ever been of owners, share owners. So, and I think that is available for options. So even if people aren't selling or buying the actual product, they're betting on it out in the future.
Yeah, when you talked about the outflows of
Yeah.
IBIT, um, were those just higher outflows or are they, where are they in relation to inflows?
So more, it's the greatest period of selling of IBIT
Okay.
than there has been since its inception.
Okay.
That could be fear. Like I think somebody said, just I have a little bit of profit and I'm going to sell and buy lower is, hopefully, but that's
Sure,
so difficult.
come back in and buy lower. Do you know any numbers as far as, there's one share sold, but there's 10 purchased that day, or is there three shares sold and there's only two purchased that day?
I haven't followed it that closely, but I
Okay.
just heard, like I'll go in and it'll say IBIT, like a headline kind of.
Right, for the activity and stuff. Yeah, and
Yeah, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was up recently just inflows because Vanguard, that's the one that Vanguard is using the most, it looks like. And they
Okay.
just launched like 2-0 Wednesday.
Well, and it could be that it's the minimum um, RMD, required minimum distribution. I mean, right now it could be a lot of people are forced to sell, and that impacts the Bitcoin.
Because they have it in like an IRA kind of
Yes, yes,
in, okay.
yeah.
I
So
that's hard to quantify in my mind. I don't, yeah, that would be
because
interesting.
old people don't own Bitcoin, but I think a lot more old people own it than we would really realize. And especially if it's probably not that much in retirement accounts. But when you mentioned Vanguard, I think there's a possibility that they, are people forced to sell, and that could be impacting it. Because there doesn't seem to be any geographical or, there's really no specific explanation
And,
Well,
in
and
my mind.
that's kind of what happened October 10th, right? Is like the forced liquidation cascade. Is that related to what you're trying to say?
Yes, yes.
refreshment, what happened on October 10th? I don't,
That was the big market drop.
okay.
Hey, Brad, there's a thing that I subscribe to called Reflexivity Research, and they give a inflow outflow, and they also do this the greed index that I was talking about, and
Yeah.
so the greed
Yeah.
and fear index, right,
Do they have it at 38?
is down to 14.
Oh wow, because
14.
I
That's
glance at
really low. It's on a 100
that is
scale.
really low.
Yeah. But on the inflows, so spot Bitcoin ETF inflows, and it shows all the ETFs, like IBIT and all that. Susan was talking about that. I got into that when it came out in January 24. But the thing is that it shows, the inflows and the outflows. And so, there was over $1 billion that was sold out. I guess that was on between the 10th, which Tim just talked about, through the 14th of November. So, I mean, those are big, big outflows. Normally, you're seeing inflows on that. And so, I don't know. That's like you said, you're continuing to buy. I'm going to be buying this week. And so, uh, I think with a greed index or a fear index as low as it is, and the outflows like that, eventually, like Susan was saying, they're playing both sides of it. These people don't really care whether something goes up or goes down. I'm a capitalist, so I don't like to short stuff. I don't like to bet that something's going to go down.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not smart enough.
I fundamentally cannot do that. For me, that's giving a finger to the United States. I mean, okay, so I can't do that. But there are people who do that, and they do that well, and they do it on both sides. And
It's
so
all they do
that's what's
too,
happening
except
now. But
yeah.
don't, like Susan was saying, they're shorting it. But when they're covering and they're making their profit, they're going to be buying more because they're expecting it to go up, and they're going to make it go up. So,
And they're
it's
not
like,
hodlers.
yes. Well, what now?
And they're not hodlers.
No, they're not
They
hodlers. They're in and out,
yeah.
hourly, daily, weekly, whatever the time frame
Yes.
is. So, they don't care about capital gains and things like that because they're traders. Traders know they're going to get hit with a full tax. And so that's why they need to trade as much as they do. So I don't, I'm just saying is that the, the time, now's the time to buy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
scary. I mean, like I said, when I had that opportunity back when if think about all the money you could have made when the market was crashing, literally crashing 30-40% when everybody thought the world was gonna, completely go in 2020. And oil went to negative $35 a barrel.
You
Negative
could get
$35.
paid to take oil.
They were
Yeah.
paying you to take the frickin' oil. I mean,
Yeah, you could.
that's never happened before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Crazy. So,
that was a very small window, though, too.
I understand that. It's a very small window. It's a very, very small window. And I'm not saying that, we would be lucky enough to get in there. That when I bought it at that 10% at 600, it was down to 3,000. And I tried to get in at 3 or 4. And by the time I could get in the sale, it was up to 6. So even though I did really well, I still missed 50% more, but you can't always hit the bottom, but
Right, right. Or the top.
or the top. I think Ahmed will do fine. I think his 2% will turn into 20% soon enough. Plus,
Yeah, it's more the question, does he want to jump in, now and buy another whatever Bitcoin?
It's probably a good time to average in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's tough to buy when you're going to when it first hit that 70,000 or 69,000. It eventually went down to around 20 or 18. And I remember buying it like 43, and then I bought it 28, and then I bought it 23, thinking, okay, that's the bottom. And then it would drop another 2 or 3 or 5,000 on me. And my last buy, like I said, was around 20. And so you just don't know if you're catching a falling knife or if you're catching a bottom. But you just got to jump in because look where we're at now. Even at 85 or 90,
Yeah,
most of
that 43 still look good. Yeah.
it looks great. But at the time when it went from 43 to 20, it's like, geez, I just lost half my money.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got diamond hands and diamond stomachs to hang in there.
Yeah, you need some of that titanium stomach to get in and out of this.
Cast iron.
Cast
Yeah.
iron, yes.
Yeah.
But what was it? Was it oh, who's the guy from Omaha?
Oh, Warren Buffett?
Warren Buffett.
Buffett.
He said, when there's blood in the streets, that's when you buy.
Right.
Yep.
People are freaking out. That's when you buy. And I was fortunate to buy a little bit at the time. But a
I
lot of
bought.
other people made millions and millions more because I didn't have much money at that time, right? Enough
Yeah.
to buy as much as I wanted.
Yeah, maybe we need to update that from Mr. Buffett to when there's blood on the blockchain.
That's
Okay.
good.
Any different thoughts on the altcoins versus Bitcoin? We've kind of been focusing on that. Um,
I just reallocated, sold off, traded, excuse me, swapped for Solana quite a bit. I did buy some more Bitcoin, but I did go through and take some of my underperformers and swap that out for a bunch of Solana. I don't like Solana on a lot of its fundamentals, but like I said before, hey, if it makes money in the end, that's really my metric. Not
yeah.
if if I don't like the tokenomics or a lot of the other, it's I don't see how you make an investment in something that has gone offline 12 times, but the price never dropped. That just speaks so heavily of manipulation
Yeah,
and not something enterprise ready.
that's for sure. What's the last time Solana went offline? How long has it been?
Nah, I don't. I honestly don't know. I would have to. I can ask uh, Perplexity, uh, but I don't. I want to say 8 months, 10 months,
Oh, okay. Okay.
something.
So that's okay. Because I know you mentioned, yeah, how many times it's happened. I wasn't sure if it's something happening once a quarter, whatever. So hopefully that'll get, I mean, it's got to get fewer and fewer as we go along.
When was the last time Solana went offline?
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
on those underperformers that you mentioned, Tim, were those smaller cap?
Solana last went offline February 6, 2024 for a 5 hour main net outage.
Okay. So yeah, we're getting close to 2 years, which is good, but yeah, it's still not great to see. On those ones that you reallocated, the ones that you got out of, were those smaller cap that
Uh,
or still
they
bigger?
were in like the top 25.
Okay.
Cosmo Atom is the one that I got out of, and I like the architecture of the blockchain, um, but at the same point, the one thing that I do see happening is the word that keeps getting bandied about right now is yield. But sometimes the yield is being generated through, you know, basically inflation. Yeah, it'll give you a good yield, but guess what? The price drops. And if the price drops 60% to give you a 14% yield, that's you're
Yeah, you earned
buying
it, but if
small.
what you earn goes down, right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I turned around and got rid of everything I had on that and bought like 50 Solana.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got a few that I've like Algo has I've bought some of that when we talked about the 20022 uh
Yeah, the ISO.
the ISO ones. Yeah, and I mean, I remember Lino had mentioned that's the one that has the highest percentage are coins are in circulation, where the other ones are, still holding them back. But man, that one's just kind of been a dog for me. So
Well, I like Algorand a lot. I used to have a pretty large bag of it, but I did turn around and I have not sold anything. I have swapped things a handful of times to generate larger.
yeah, yeah, I'm looking at the chart now, and it kind of peaked here recently over the past year in July, and it's just kind of been on a downtrend since. So I think I'm going to
Well,
sell it.
kind of everything has. You got to, when
Yeah.
in doubt, zoom out.
There you go. Good point.
Everything looks. There's blood everywhere.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you go to get rid of the more bloody to go to the less bloody, or yeah,
There
yeah.
are a few other altcoins I've been hearing about. One of them is SUI, SUI,
Hmm.
Link, and Ondo. And then, of course, there's XRP and XLM.
Yeah, the Ondo, spell that one for me or with the symbol?
ONDO.
Okay, we
yeah,
haven't
it's a
talked.
finance.
That's Binance. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these are related to other projects or each other, like XRP and XLM are somehow related. I have a special fondness for XLM because it's supposed to actually be helping. It's like a nonprofit, first of all, and it helps instead of like Western Union charging you 10% for like especially underprivileged areas. It's nominal fees or minimal.
Yeah, the XLM is the underpinnings of uh, that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
tell us
how
more
the
about Ondo. We haven't discussed that one. Anything you know on that one?
I just know that it keeps getting mentioned. I'm a fanatic YouTube researcher, so
Okay.
my algorithm has completely changed. Lately, it's crypto everything, but that one keeps getting mentioned. Sui, yeah, and Link. I think Link and Ondo are related.
Okay.
Yeah, Ondo I purchased a small amount a long time ago, but that has yet, like many others, turned into one of my underperformers. Um, I didn't do a huge amount, but it is still down over 20% or so. Might even be more than that. I haven't used to be where, I'd find myself looking at everything all day long. And now, like, it hurts too much to look at all. Kind of like, I don't want to know. I
I
did
know.
hear
I want
I
to like
did hear
forget it.
one interesting thing. A lot of us had heard that XRP would be uh, used by the Fed at some point, and that basically Ripple came out of a large alliance of bankers, basically. And then I heard something very recently, and when I heard it the second time, and I, like Elizabeth there, and spend a lot of time on YouTube. It's, part of retirement, I guess. Um, that XRP probably won't be chosen by the banks. And there's another ERC20 token, Leona, which is trading at like 9/10 of a cent or something. And so I turned around and I bought like $100 worth, because that supposedly is what they were looking at, to basically do the replacement for Swift. And apparently they have some tie-ins, and then it was somebody who spoke at one of the recent conferences and I do not remember. It's just too much stuff for me to remember. I used to be able to remember all this stuff all the time. My head's too full of all kinds of stuff. And but when I heard it mentioned the second time, and the one was from somebody who spoke at one of the recent crypto conferences, made mention of it actually trying to become the replacement for Swift. I was like, well, okay, I turned around and I bought a bunch of XRP to make sure I kind of had coverage there. And, I, hearing that for a second time, I was kind of like, well, let me throw a little bit in there. And it's so low, the hell's $100? I spend that to fill my tank.
Right. Tim, what was the symbol on that Leona?
Leon. Hold on, let me look it up. One moment. This is the most I've logged into Coinbase in a long time. Yeah, Ondo's, God, way down. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Linea, excuse me. Linea.
Okay.
Now, definitely not investment advice. I don't recall even who I heard saying it. And I know that I already have an unrealized return of under negative $8. But at the same point, it's like 10,000 tokens for $100. It's kind of, a leverage play, shall we say.
Right, get in early, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's, get in early, and hey, if it turns around and it goes up to a penny, I will 10x my money.
Right, right. And yeah, and it goes to 10 cents, you're even better. So
Yeah.
yeah, what I always thought was a good strategy, and unfortunately I just haven't done it, is kind of watching the coins climb the market cap list, on coin market cap. So if you take a look at, for example, coins that are 90 to 100, and then one moves to 82, and then it moves to 71 kind of thing. It's like, hey, there's one to buy, as the market cap is increasing. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
I've
but
never
that
tried that
hasn't been
strategy.
happening really, has it?
Well, I look at the chart from the top down. So, the top 15 or 20, and I'm like, hey, there's this new one, I haven't seen. Like, there's Hyper Liquid
Yeah,
is
but
number 12 right now. I'm like, I don't remember seeing that one. But probably 3 months ago, maybe it was 37, on the chart,
yeah, but
which
some of those are basically, rising because the others are turning into falling knives. And as things come out of the top 10, something's going to go up to take its place.
sure, but these projects that are
Unless
up and
you're looking at
coming,
pure market cap.
yeah, that's all I was looking at. Because, you could look at one that's like 1,623, and it's probably going nowhere. But if there's something that was, 150 6 months ago, and then it climbed to 81, and, it's probably moving up.
Yeah.
But, and it seems like it would be safer to buy it when it was at 92 than when it was at 592. We may not 100x, but we may 10x at a higher probability. I don't know. I guess I need some time and to sit around and watch some of these and then see what happens to them. But
Well, the good thing is QT has officially, this is the longest period in time ever that we've been in quantitative tightening. And that officially ended, I think it was on December 2nd. And so now at least they're no longer taking and doing the quantitative tightening. Now the question really is, at what point do we see that affect global liquidity? And with that also M2. Basically, that's a double-edged knife that's falling on some level, because that's, generates inflation. Just the question, I guess, is in terms of risk on assets. Uh, do we gain more value than how much inflation actually kicks?
right now, that's the secret sauce.
That's the double-edged falling knife.
Yeah. Okay.
So my understanding is that when inflation starts hitting the markets, that people run to safety. They run to gold and silver and Bitcoin.
Yeah,
So
but
that
if you're having a hard time putting food on the table, you're not really looking at the price of Bitcoin.
right.
Well, yeah, if you're in that income bracket, but I think she's talking more of the investable income. Is that kind of what you're referring to, Elizabeth? The
Yeah.
people that are making 300 grand a year, you know, they're the
Aren't
ones that are
having a hard
moving those
time putting food
assets.
on the table.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I
Go ahead.
a couple of more questions because I know this we only have like 15 minutes left. Um,
Uh, yeah, we could kind of go here or there, but yeah, we try not to turn these things into 3-hour marathons. Go ahead. And the one thing that we always try to do is if there's somebody that has kind of hit a roadblock and you're trying to do something, you're trying to move something from one exchange to another or from an exchange to a wallet or set up something. If you ever hit a roadblock, bring those kind of things up because maybe somebody's gone through that kind of thing and in 3 minutes we can help you through that. So feel free to
awesome.
bring those things up, at any time.
Yeah, I could actually use well, one of them is I could use a recommendation about wallets and some clarification between uh, I think hot wallets are online and cold wallets are offline, and it's self custody, so that I can't get forced liquidation on me. Um, and but I also have a question about Bitcoin mining.
Okay.
Um, so from my research, and I was like, I'll never be a miner. I'll just I'll just try to buy low as possible. But there's this mining as a service has come to my attention. So like if I was going to get a mining device in my home, it would be noisy. It would be um, demand a lot of electricity. Like I don't know how to upkeep that and things like that. So there's a couple companies like Saz Mining and Musk Mining that you just kind of buy the device, they host it, they run it, they keep it going and maintaining, and then they stack the satoshis into your wallet, and then you pay them a fee. But Saz Mining, at least you could pay them right out of the wallet. But it's a way, if I wanted to pay them cash, I could keep cycling my money out of fiat and into Bitcoin. But it would be profitable, especially as the price goes up, because my cost for Bitcoin would be like 50,000 instead of like I'm thinking, oh, 90,000 is so low, I should buy in, versus what about mining for 50,000?
It's kind of like a rent a miner service.
Yeah,
And you
except that
can
I
also,
own
like,
it for, and it's
if you do buy, they have these smaller, like the little axe miners, if you've seen those, and they're about $500. And they have a small but decent hash rate. But if you're going to take and go that route, you can be the bold warrior, go forth and do solo, and hey, wow, you made a little better odds than getting hit by a car crossing the traffic. You might actually manage to actually get the 3.25 or whatever reward is now for mining an actual block, where people are making money doing that is actually joining a mining pool and collectively being able to take all that hash rate, and now you have 1,000 U's taking and actually trying to be the one, and so your odds go up hugely, but your reward also drops because it's being shared. And then some of those actually take and do I don't remember what they call it. I want to say tournaments type of reward,
Yeah,
where
lottery.
yeah, lottery. There we go. Where if you're the out of the 1,000 in your pool, your machine is the one that actually produces the winning hash, then you make a larger percentage than everybody else in the pool. And so you may make 3/4 of a Bitcoin, and then the rest of it small slices taken out for overhead, and then everybody else shares what's left of that reward. But it's kind of, you're, with the exception of like the bit axes and stuff, most of those services she spoke of, you're renting a miner. They already have them there. It's just you're subsidizing their ability to take and actually have that thing cooled and the electricity to run it and everything else. And so they're kind of playing with other people's money.
Yeah, you got to watch out for the ones, a popular, I mean, literally scam were
Yes.
were offering like mining contracts where for a month you would pay this amount and you supposedly got 10% of what this miner produced or something like that. And there was just so many of those and so many problems that, when you
Yeah.
said mining as a service, to me that was just like a red flag, no. But then what you sounded like what you're talking about is I think what they're referring to is like co-hosting or co-locating, where it's your device and they're just putting it in their facility. And we've done this with web servers. I could take,
I've done that so much.
a computer and just put it into a network operations center because they've got, all the heating and the cooling and the bandwidth and all that kind of stuff. And it looks like the way the miners do it. Michael, what is going on? Oh, but and it seems like what those places do is charge you for the electricity.
Michael, you're muted.
Yeah. Um, so, but I think you need to be pretty serious about the mining to get into it at that level. And the one thing to watch out for is as the difficulty increases to mine, your machine makes less and less over time. And so
You're
you
better
may
off to just buy spot.
Yeah, that when it comes down to it, it seems like it's just simpler just to instead of dropping 10 grand for that mining ASIC miner, just buy 10,000 in Bitcoin. Go ahead.
Oh, that was 5 grand. I was just
Oh,
thinking.
5 grand.
It
Okay.
was only 5 grand.
Okay. All right. But the same point applies. Is just understand that what it makes today isn't going to be what it's making in a year from now.
Well, the thing is that it will always be that I'm chipping away at stacking sats at 50,000 or 55,000. Um, even if it doubles to 200,000, that's all I'm stacking sats at. It is so it's like over time it could really it seems like a crazy investment. It seems crazier not to. That's how I was
Yeah.
feeling about it.
But understand if you're making, in one year, the first year you're making a tenth of a Bitcoin. The next year you might only make 7% of a Bitcoin. The next year, 4% of a Bitcoin. Because as the difficulty goes up, and there's more people mining and more efficient miners compared to what you have, you're with
Yeah.
that $5,000 investment, it's what you make, the number of coins you make going forward is going to be less and less. Now the price may go up. Obviously, that's what we've been talking about today. But it's, I wouldn't put like 50% of your portfolio into a miner.
Unless you're mega rich.
And
Michael might rent you a miner at that point.
let me add a little bit here. I used to mine Bitcoin for years, okay, but not with ASIC machines. Okay, there's I mined with GPUs and for like 4.5 years until they screwed up Ethereum, and then those days are over. And that was really annoying because it was really like almost free money. But the point is that I agree. Buying the Bitcoin itself is probably a better idea than doing the investment. It seems like a great idea. Again, this is just my nickel's worth. And the fact that I did spend 4.5 years actually mining Bitcoin. Wasn't mining Bitcoin itself, I was mining Ethereum and other coins, and then those were converted into Bitcoin. But that still got me a third of a Bitcoin during that time. So it did well. But general mining right now without an ASIC machine, just regular GPUs, is not, you're not making any money. You're losing money. There's no money to be made mining with GPUs now. The ASIC machines are loud, um, hot, and quite costly. So the third one is, I think what you were talking about there, Elizabeth, is hiring somebody essentially. You're basically buying part of their operation. And I think that's what you're thinking about. But
Right, like they're hosting it.
they're hosting it, right? And I think that the numbers that Brad was talking about are probably a little generous, 10% of a Bitcoin, this and that. I think that they're going to be much smaller percentages that you actually get. But I mean, if you have a lot of extra money, yeah, maybe you might consider that. I think Tim said something about that. If you're rich, not necessarily rich, but if you have extra money. But if you just want to look at it as an investment, it's probably just best to buy the Bitcoin itself. Average in. If you want to spend 5 grand, buy 1,000 at a time. And so, average your way in there. Then that way it that will make you more money over the long term, I believe. But
Well, it's too late.
well, there's always opportunities.
It's never too late.
Never too late.
I mean,
Never,
I
yeah.
signed it. I bought it. I paid for it already.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
I did. I
Okay.
did.
All right.
Just asking
Well,
what you think about it.
then
Right.
we wish you a lot of great luck. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep us updated.
I
Yeah.
will. I
And it
will.
would be,
What was
we
the
would love
machine?
to be wrong. I would love to be wrong and think that,
Yeah.
and that this is a fantastic opportunity for you, and that you kick booty, and that the next time you come here, you'll be, hey, I'm up 5 grand on this. We would love to hear that. Or I've got my money back, meaning that you've made enough to pay for your initial investment, and that now everything you get from there is gravy. We would love to hear that.
Yeah, that's
It may
what it
be
really
a
comes down to
10-year
is,
timeline.
yeah,
Yes.
how
And
long does
Yeah.
it
and you're
take to
not
recoup your
probably
investment?
going to want to take and invest the 10 years at X number a month. This is, as Brad described, very much just co-hosting, co-location service. And I've done a ton of that. I did that for, Jesus, probably 8-10 years for web services. But that was different. I was being paid to do that. I didn't even have to pay for the cabinet. I could even put my own machines in there because I had a customer who was paying for everything, and they only had 6 machines that I was managing. So the rest of it was all gravy, and it was nice. I wish I still had that. I could probably make a little more money off that now than I was able to at that time. And I find myself back in that now because I'm doing vibe coding and using AI to write applications. And I very soon, once I get this one done and I'm ready to actually take and put it online, I'm going to have to go find hosting again.
Yeah, and that's more of a commodity. Let's cover your other question there real quick for the wallets. And I kind of break it down into three areas. So the first one is an exchange, Coinbase, crypto.com, whatever. Those are, we can
Kraken.
buy the fund. Yeah, any of those exchanges, those are not self-custody. That's not where we're controlling the private keys. If, a
Not your
government
coin.
agency says, "Hey, you need to freeze Elizabeth's assets," you know, and they have to comply or whatever, and you're out of luck. A good example was on XRP when all that crap came down
Yeah,
3 or 4 years ago. Coinbase froze XRP for I think at about 2 years.
completely out. Yeah.
Yeah, so you couldn't move
Maybe Gary
people.
Gensler becomes Secretary of Treasury.
What? I'm in the middle of this thing.
Okay, I just want to.
Oops.
Okay, so, all right, Mark. Okay, Michael, we're going to put you down as entertainment chairman for our group. Okay, so real quick, so we got the exchanges, and then the next level to the good is going to be what you call the hot wallets. And for two examples
Danger.
there, I want you to look at Exodus. It's exodus.com, and they have a desktop version, on your computer as well as on your phone. I've used and I do crypto coaching on the side every once in a while, and I've always recommended that one because you can use it on your phone or your computer. They're linked together. Some people like the computer because the screen is bigger and a keyboard, that kind of thing. Some people want to have it on their on the go, and you can do one. It covers both. The other one to look at that's been pretty popular is called the Trust Wallet. That one is only a cell phone app. Um, there supposedly somebody tried to come out with one for the desktop. That's some scam that people realize. So if you see some trust on the desktop, that's a no-go. So take a look at those two. I don't think you could go wrong with either one. I still use the Exodus myself, just because it's so flexible.
Hmm.
And then the cold wallet, the Ledger and the Trezor have always been the two, companies from way back when. But a lot of us, some of us have been using one called the Tangen wallet. It's
Yep.
Tan. I've got
I heard.
my
I
T
heard they have
A
a
N G
ring
E
now.
N.
There's a tangent ring.
Tangen.
Yeah, I can't. My hands are too fat. I wanted that, and it won't fit on my fingers.
Yeah, and I started with that just a couple months ago, and I liked it because I could have the three cards and essentially have backups and store,
Yeah,
one at home safely. I could put one in my wallet on the go. I could put one in a safe deposit box, that kind of thing.
Mm.
So,
yeah.
maybe we need to have a meeting. Sometimes we have repetitive meetings where we talk about exchanges once a year. Hey, what's new? What's changed? This kind of thing. Maybe February we do one on wallets just to kind of bring the current stuff, to see what's out there. So, but I think if you start with those three, um,
I
that
like the tangent.
yeah, you can't really go wrong on there. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Cool.
And the tangent basically has a phone app. There's nothing that you can use uh, on a desktop for it.
Okay.
But basically, it's a credit card sized device, so it doesn't have a screen. And like I bought a Ledger and I never used it just because the build quality was crap. I come out of the hardware design world, and that thing, Legos are more solid than that little thing. Um, but hey, on another level, they're the they're the kind of the movers and shakers because of the fact they've been out the longest. But
Yeah, and you
in the
don't need to
end,
use it very often, kind of thing. And one thing people don't realize is you don't have to have that Ledger or Trezor connected to transfer the coins to it. So you could, put that in a safe deposit box in Dallas, and you only need to access if you want to use those funds or transfer them back to an exchange and then transfer money to your bank account to pay off your house or whatever. But if you're using it for long-term storage and you're just sending the funds there 200 bucks a month or whatever, you can do that without actually connecting the device to your computer. So it's not something you need to use, on a regular basis type of thing. But yeah, I think I'll put that down for a February meeting and we can talk about that. All right.
Our next meeting is February?
No, the next
Or
meeting is January. It's not the first week because that's like kind of the middle of New Year's, but it's the second one, second weekend, second Saturday. And one of our members, David, is going to talk about trading crypto. He runs a private investment club, where you put money in and then basically he has traders that are trading the funds for you to make, a few percent a month kind of thing. And so trading seems to be always that golden ticket that people are trying to figure out. And so he has experience kind of on a larger scale with the trading, although he doesn't, well, we'll let him talk about it.
I
But
just heard of someone get scammed that way where they pooled their money and it was supposed to get traded and then the guy was gone with all their money.
yeah, and that's why these guys started. And they're based out of Fresno here. And so it's just a small group of people that you could, I mean, I've known David for like 25 years and it's a different thing in my mind when I know the person, I know where they live a mile away from me and that kind of thing. Then, hey, I heard this guy and my friend sent me a link on Facebook and whatever.
Let's give him some money.
Because we've all been scammed in that regard and those kinds of
Not
things.
successfully.
So that's something we'll watch out for. But yeah, that's where we're at. But if you can make it to Fresno Clovis for the pizza meeting, we'd love to have you there as
Okay, so
well.
that's only in person then
Well,
on the
wait,
10th.
uh, wait, there's like January 10th, are we talking? Yeah.
Yeah, January
That
10th is the second Saturday.
that's
Is there
that's the
gonna be
Zoom.
another? Oh,
Yeah.
that's the Zoom. Okay.
Yeah. And if you go to Meetup and go to events, it defaults to future events or whatever. And so you can see, what we're doing in the future
Okay.
kind of thing. But it's generally the first or second weekend of the month is the Zoom, and the third or the fourth weekend of the month is the pizza in person meeting. And it
Okay.
kind of varies, to try to avoid holidays or Father's Day, or these kinds of things is why that changes from time to time. Or if I'm out of town or I can't make it, then I try not to schedule then too. So that's actually why January is a little wacky. So our January in-person meeting is the first weekend in February, but you'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, I do have to get going, but I just have a last little comment and thank you all for being here. I've been needing to talk about this, and my friends and family are like it's not their thing. You're either drawn to it or you're not, I think. Um, but I'm also trying to understand astrology when it comes to the charts and what's happening. And I also do believe in like diversifying to some degree. And so silver is in a stellium until spring, and then it's good for the next 7 years. So just throwing that out there.
Interesting. Now we do talk about those a little bit, the precious metals, but
Yeah.
good deal. I think that's a good point to end on.
Okay.
All right, good. Well,
Thank
thank you for
you.
joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future,
Okay.
and we will
Yes.
go from there. All right, everybody. Hope to see some of you, if not all of you, in person at the crypto or at the pizza meeting. If I don't see you there, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll keep on trucking in January. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Brad. See you guys.
Take care. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank